Here in Lesson 5, we're going to continue on with the same concept we dealt with in Lesson 4, which is solving a system of equations. In the last lesson, we looked at how to use your calculator for that, as well as how to use a graphing method for that. These are the other two methods that you would have learned, which is elimination and substitution. So I want to review those with you, and these are coming from word problems today instead of just giving you the straightforward equations. So these are equations you'd have to come up with on your own first, and then choose a method for solving these. So here goes the first one. It said the sum of two numbers is 2, and their difference is 6. What are the two numbers? So for the first part, the sum of two numbers is 2. We don't know what those numbers are, so we're just going to call them x and y. And we know that their sum is 2. So there's the first equation that we would write for this one. They now have a difference of 6 on the second equation. So here's the system of equations we were able to come up with for this. Now we just have to solve it. We learned two ways on how to do this yesterday. Today I'm just showing you the other two ways of doing this. If the test doesn't tell you which way to solve it, then you just pick your favorite method and go with it. But if the test does give you a specific method to use, you got to make sure that you do that. So again, I don't teach how to use the matrix in your calculator anymore for this. It was just confused too many people, so we're going to stick with other methods here. I know these are the solutions, but let's take a look at how you would get them. So I'm going to jump over to a separate sheet of paper here to work through this one, but here are those two equations, and we're going to use the elimination method. The elimination method just simply says I should be able to add these two equations together and eliminate one of the letters. So we're just going to go ahead and add those two equations together. We know that x plus x is 2x. A y plus a negative y is nothing, so my y's got eliminated just as they should. And then obviously those add up to 8. Now I have a really easy equation to solve. If I divide both sides by 2, I get my solution for x. And if I just pick any equation and sub it back in, I can solve for my y value. So if I put a 2 right there, a 4 right there for x, 4 plus y equals 6, and we can now solve that equation for y. If I subtract the 4 from both sides, I get my value for y. So those are the two solutions that we came up with for him. That was the elimination method. Notice on this one, when I went to add, these canceled really nicely for me. But you're going to run into some cases like this one, where nothing is really set up for elimination. If I add these equations together, nothing's going to cancel. I'm going to get 6x and negative 2y. Nothing was eliminated, so I gotta somehow deal with that within my problem. So you can multiply either equation by any number that you choose to set it up for elimination. One option would be to multiply your top equation by negative 2, because then I would have a negative 4 here and a positive 4 here, so they would cancel. Your other option is to multiply the top equation by 3. That would give me a positive 3 here and a negative 3 here, and that would work also. Doesn't matter which one you want to do, just pick your favorite and go with it. So if I were to multiply this equation by negative 2, so here's what we would now have. And you got to make sure you distribute that negative 2 to the entire equation. That's important. A lot of times people forget to do it to the last number and they get the wrong answer. So, sorry, I'm running out of room here, so I'm trying to squeeze that in. There we go. And let's just bring over the other equation so that they're nice and lined up for us. So we got the 4x minus 3y is 5. And so now I'm just going to add those equations straight down. I get a negative 5y here. I get a negative 3 here. And so my first answer would just be 3/5. And then I can go ahead and sub that back into either here or here in order to get my second solution. So let me move on to the next part of the notes here. So that was the elimination method. On this one, we're going to use the substitution method. So first things first, we got to come up with the proper equations to use. So this one says the length of a rectangle is 4 more than its width. And so if I just put those in terms of L's and W's, the length is 4 more than the width. And so there's one equation that we could come up with for what's been given to us. They also tell us that the perimeter is 36. Well, how do you get the perimeter of a rectangle? Well, you got 2 lengths plus 2 widths to give you the perimeter of that rectangle. And so there's the second equation that we could write. You can see that this one is nicely set up for substitution because I have a letter by itself. So we know that if L equals 4 plus W, I can then sub that in for L into my second equation. So let me go ahead and do that one by hand on the other page here. So I wrote that one down. Let me line this up. So for that one, again, if I want to substitute, if I know that L equals 4 plus W, then I can just plug in the 4 plus W into my other equation for L. So that's going to go in right there. So let me rewrite my equation. But instead of L, I can now put 4 plus W. And now I have an equation with only W's in it, so now it's easy to solve. So I'll go through it really quick for you. So distribute the 2. Plus 4W. And then if you subtract the 8 and divide by 4, we get our width. And then obviously once you get the width, you can just plug that back in for W and come up with your length that way. And so that's the substitution method way of doing it. Let me show you one more. Couple quick reminders just while I'm thinking about it. You really have to read directions carefully. Some specifically ask you for the 2 equations that you could use, and sometimes that's all they ask is what are the equations that you would use for this problem. Some might ask you for only one item, like this question on the test might ask you for only the length or only the width, and so you got to make sure that you respond with only what the question is asking for. If this question said, what is the length, and you gave this answer where you gave both answers, you would actually be marked down for that. So you have to respond to exactly what the question is asking for. So if you look at example 3, this is the last one we're going to do. We got the cost to go to a movie for 3 kids and 2 adults is $23. 4 adults and 5 kids is $43. What is the cost of a child ticket? So you got to make sure that you only respond with what is being asked of you, and that's just the child's ticket. So here's the setup I used for the first statement. So it said 3 kids and 2 adults, or you could say 3 children and 2 adults. So that's what I used for the first one. Right here you got the 5 kids and 4 adults for $43. So these are the 2 equations that we would come up with. This is our system of equations. And now you can pick any method for solving for this one here. And so we can see here that this is what the solution is. Really important that you identify which number is which value, whether it's the children or the adult ticket, because for this particular problem, you don't want to give both solutions. You only want to state the child ticket because that's all they ask for. So give this one a try. I'll work through it here in a minute if you want to pause the video and give this one a try. And then play the video and you can see how I worked it out and make sure we did the same thing. So here's the setup for that one. The quickest way would have been to use elimination, and I would multiply my top equation by -2 so that I could set up these guys right here for elimination. So if I did the top one by -2, here's how that one's going to play out for you. So I did the top equation by -2. I brought over the bottom equation, and now when I add straight down, I get -1k for the child ticket. My adult tickets are eliminated. Those add up to -3, so if I divide both sides by -1, I get my child ticket, which is $3. And notice for this particular problem, I can stop there because that's all they were asking for is what's the child ticket. And so that $3 represents my child ticket, so I'm done. I wouldn't need to come up with the second part of that because I just need to answer the question that's being asked of me. So really important that you always read the directions for what they say on every problem.